What's going on, everybody? We are back with episode number 5 of the What's Your Hustle podcast. I'm here with Pam Dors. We are going to sit down and talk a little business, and then probably a little bit more about some business, and a little bit about a B&I if we get into it. So I'll let you officially introduce yourself and kind of give me a rundown of. I know we talked briefly. You have a couple different businesses out there that you're working with, so go ahead and jump right into it.
Well, I call myself a serial entrepreneur because I have these great ideas and then I like to implement them. So currently I am a real estate agent locally with the Talbot Greene Group and globally with Keller Williams Realty International. That probably takes up most of my time. The second big thing that I do is I own a horse farm in Clark County called Evergreen Farm, where I am the owner, the trainer, the head stall mucker, the head everything. And that takes up probably the second largest amount of my time.
Wow.
Yep. I also own a cute little shop in downtown Berryville called Berryville Treasures. It's an all artist shop where everything in there is made by somebody local. And I'm an owner and an artist in there. So I have 3 full-time jobs and 3 full-time businesses, and my husband also has a business that I help him with. He does handyman work for the real estate company, so he's a handyman guy.
That's not a bad trait to have.
It is not.
Especially because with selling my house, about 2 months ago, I quickly ran into a couple handyman tasks that I was like, man, I'm kind of glad that I paid attention when I was younger. My dad would step in and, pay attention. You're going to need to know how to do this and that.
Yeah.
And just all the knowledge along the way. And it's definitely a task or a trait that is well suited wherever you go.
Absolutely. Yeah. And the latest thing we're doing is coming, I guess, January 1st, we have an investment property on the Northern Neck that we will be doing short-term rentals with, and we worked with a builder, and the builder probably did about 75% of it. So we have been very busy doing the remaining 25%, which is why he's good at being a handyman, because I do a lot of pointing.
So you manage.
I manage, but I do labor. I do all the tiling work. I do all the design work. I make a lot of the fixtures and stuff as well, but I'm very good at pointing.
That's exciting. Mm-hmm. So tell me a little bit more about your business in Berryville. Sounds like you do a lot with artists.
Yeah, so it's a great little shop. It has been in Berryville for 10 years. Like I said, it's called Berryville Treasures. I have been there for 6. I have a co-owner who's also an artist in there. And Julie and I have this vision for this place. Well, she's always had the vision. She just kind of helped me to see it, although she says that I helped her to see it. I literally walked in the shop one day with a bunch of things that I was making and wanted to find an outlet to sell them. And I walked in, and 6 months later I was on the board, and a couple of months after that I was one of the owners, because all of a sudden it just sort of, it bloomed, it blossomed. All of a sudden I could see all of these fabulous things that we could do. So we did a whole revamp on the shop. We got a bunch of new vendors in, and it is just a very, very unique store because there's no resale items. We don't buy anything anywhere and resell it. Well, with the exception of like little gift bags, but everything in there.
The main focus is artist driven. That is awesome.
Yeah, and it's all kinds of artwork. It isn't. We're not just like a lot of people think. Oh, so you have like painters and I don't have anybody who like paints landscapes. That's not what we do. I think you call it tactile art. So okay. I'm not like an artist, so to speak, but everybody does all different things from. I design logos and things to go on T-shirts, and they call me the word lady. So I put stencil words on old barn board.
Okay.
I make soaps and candles. Julie creates logos and does those tumblers with all the sparkly things and the words on it. We have other artists who do crocheted hats and gloves and pottery and... Man, you name it. And it's just incredibly unique because where else can you walk into a store that's small business owned, that's all women owned, that is nothing but local people? I mean, it's just the epitome of what community is all about.
That's exactly right. Mm-hmm. You couldn't explain it any better as bringing the community together and giving an area or a platform for artists to kind of show their work.
Yeah.
I can kind of compare it to what I'm doing here,
Sure.
where I'm sitting down and I just want to hear about people's history, right? Their business, what they do, and hear their story, and definitely give them a platform to express it. Because how many times do people walk up to you and say, "Hey, do you want to be on a podcast?"
Right.
So it's definitely, and to kind of tie it into, what I do as a business with social media marketing and everything, being able to give you a little taste of what social media marketing can do, right? Get it moving with clips and this and that. Just tie it all into one. But the main focus is sitting down and having a conversation. Because I feel like me personally, because I've only been, I would say, quote unquote, in the business world for a couple of years now, but I feel like it's becoming more and more business and not connecting and community and that drive to, okay, we're building a professional relationship. We're not just, doing business.
Sure.
If that makes sense.
And I feel like doing this interview process and being able to have a conversation and make it lively is another form of art.
Oh, absolutely.
Right. And that's why when people say,
Absolutely.
"Oh, so do you have painters?" Well, I mean, that to me is, it's not that it's not an important art, but there's so many other types of art. And we're not crafters. We are artists. It's just our medium. Yours is being able to coax people to say, wonderful things and have lively conversations and teach about their businesses, and you explain about how you do in social marketing. That's just a whole nother form.
Oh,
Just
absolutely.
A whole nother way.
Absolutely. And what I didn't realize, probably 5 or 6 years ago when I started working with a camera and picked up a camera, I've been creative my entire life. I love to draw. I can't remember the last time I did, but I do love it. I enjoy seeing different types of art. I have my favorites, right? But, enjoying art as a whole is definitely something that, as when I was younger, with being on the road and going crazy with sports, I didn't feel like I could fully appreciate it, right? I'm not saying I would go back and change anything, but I think once I picked up the camera, that's when I kind of realized, like, this is another paintbrush. This is another sculpting tool. This is something that you can create with, and that's what's kind of drawn me more and more towards it. Now, fast forward, combining that with the degree that I have and the background that I have and my education, trying to bring those two together where I can create something cool and use it to help market a business, that would be perfect.
Well, and not being a starving artist, right?
Exactly. True. Yeah. No, I there's a couple people that I've come across. One, his name is Kelson Thorne. He is an amazing artist. He paints, right? But I don't know the technical term. I just look at him like, it's amazing. He does murals. But it was one of those where he was at one point the starving artist. Fun fact is I did have a little video with him that I did a couple years ago, and not knowing this is kind of what has driven this podcast, is being able to hear somebody's story, is that he is an artist that is remarkable, but he can only see in shades of orange.
What?
And I was like, there's no way. He goes, yeah, it's not crazy, but it's just, he's technically colorblind.
Wow.
And you wouldn't have no idea from this. And that right there alone was like, man, this, what else are we missing, right? That we're moving so quick through the day that we're not stopping and having a conversation. So
yeah, 100%.
it's awesome.
100%.
Yeah. So I'll take another step further, or step back. You said you also own horse training and a horse
farm.
Okay.
Yep. So we built the farm in 2000, my husband and I, who has, he's learned through osmosis maybe, was not a horse guy. I've been fooling with horses since I was a little girl.
Okay.
I went to college down in the Shenandoah Valley and graduated college with an equine science degree.
Okay.
I thought I wanted to be a veterinarian, and then in one of my anatomy classes, they handed me a saw and a horse's leg, and I thought, maybe not so much.
Not for you.
Not for me. And I'll never forget my professor when I said to him, well, do I really need like this part of it? And he goes, there are not too many veterinarians that work on healthy horses. Do you call the doctor when you're healthy?
Yeah, that is a good perspective.
So, yeah, I had to change my focus. So it went to equine science, business management. And then I graduated college and moved down to Georgia and ran a horse farm down there and quickly found out that I didn't really want to work for somebody else. I had my own ideas. I had my own vision. It was wonderful learning what I could learn for the couple of years that I was there, but it was time for me to do my thing. We started the farm in 2000, and it's been an incredibly thriving little metropolis in and of itself. We've had a 4-H club that's run out of there. We've had a equine assisted facility where people use the horses as for mentally challenged and physically challenged people. They use horses for therapy. We've done that. We've had riding lessons and training. We had a stallion for many, many years. He passed away last year, unfortunately. He was the heart and soul of the farm. People think it was me, but it was really him.
That's fair enough.
So we've bred horses that are all over the world, and we've trained and sold horses all over the country. And it's been a labor of love, with the key word being labor.
Oh, yeah. I can only imagine.
Mm-hmm. I feel like I'm a little more aged than I should be physically, because I enjoyed the challenging horses, the horses that other people couldn't seem to really get through to or get past the trust zone. That was my gig, and sometimes it took some physical of Pam getting kicked to the dirt before we could get to an understanding.
You can make a connection, though, that sometimes that's life throws it at you, and you kind of gotta get back up, get back on the horse.
Get back in the saddle. That's right. That's right. But I'm slowly kind of retiring from that, because I am, all jokes aside, I am feeling physically impaired some mornings when I get up, because the arthritis and the broken bones and just the days of heavy lifting. A bag of grain weighs 50 pounds, and when you've got 20 horses living on the farm, you go through a lot of those bags of grain.
You got to keep moving.
They put out a lot of manure that has to be shoveled, and so it's been great to be as physically fit because of it all these years. But I'm starting to slow down some, because it's been a very physical, rewarding, but very physical lifestyle.
Sure. No, that definitely makes sense.
Yeah.
So my cousin, you have no idea about this. My cousin, he actually has a horse farm as well.
Oh, really?
He's a couple years older than me, and he has 2 very young kids, and they both get up with him. Mm-hmm. They enjoy it more than he does, I would assume. But they love it. They definitely, at one point I did see a 6-year-old driving a tractor, and I was like, wow. But, if it's one of those where just watching that, I was like, man, they are, and that is definitely building some strength, with, like you said, heavy lifting, moving, because it's not one of those where you can say, you know what, I'm not going to do it today. No,
yes.
You have to do it.
We are more than the post office, right?
Yep.
The post office, well, up until Amazon, the post office really didn't work on Sundays.
Yeah.
Us farmers, we don't
Worked
get a
on
day
Sundays.
off. It doesn't matter if it's snowing, sleeting, raining, windy, hurricane, anything, sleeting, whatever is happening.
Yeah.
The animals need to eat, and they have to eat first.
Yeah. No, and that's, I mean, it makes perfect sense, and it definitely kind of brings a new light to the farming industry. Definitely with animals. Yep. I can only imagine it's a challenge.
It is, and I raised 3 kids on the farm. My husband and I have 3 kids. They are now 30, 28, and just about 26. And when they were younger, it was a lot of kicking and screaming about having to go out into the pastures and pick up rocks, for instance. I mean, we live in Clark County. It's just, one giant rock with some topsoil here and there spread out. I think they ended up loving it, because now as adults, they always are recalling stories from childhood.
Memories.
And talking about how they learned this or that, the circle of life and death, and how it happens. And we had my son's friends, my oldest son had Friendsgiving this weekend, and a bunch of the guys, the kids were always at our house, because we had the 4-wheelers, we had the acreage, we had the paintball things, there was target shooting, there was all of the fun things that they could do on the farm, because it was a 30-acre farm.
Yeah.
And I've been able to watch all those young men grow up. But when we were at Friendsgiving this weekend, we were all out shooting skeet and target shooting
Fun.
and riding the kids. The little ones were just now starting on their little 50s.
It's coming full circle.
You know, it is coming full circle. And
That's
that is
awesome.
one of the things about the farm, that no matter how strenuous it was physically, it allowed me a couple of incredibly important things. And one of them was that I was an at-home mom. I did not have to go to work because my work was on the farm. So it allowed me to be able to go and do all the things with the kids, you know, with the lunches and helping with the PTO and, you know, all of that stuff. But it also taught them something that they will carry with them for the rest of their lives. And
Absolutely.
now I see my oldest son teaching his sons some of those same things. So it's been cool. It's stressful and hard, but it's been an amazing life.
That's
sure.
awesome. That's awesome. And it's definitely, I mean, coming from somebody that has a heavy sports background, I did not grow up on a farm. I grew up in the city. A lot of those things I did learn later. And again, going over to a friend's house, visiting their family, doing all those fun things. Fun fact, my wife grew up in Sussex County, New Jersey.
Okay.
They're going to be watching, so I have to make sure I pronounce it correctly. So, and a lot of people hear New Jersey, and they're like, oh, New Jersey. No, this is like middle of nowhere, New Jersey.
No, I get it.
And the story that I tell everybody to compare is the first time I was up there, I went up, and they were like, hey, we're going to run to the store. Do you want to come with us? And me, living in Frederick City, Maryland, I was like, running to the store in my head is, yeah, let's run to the store. I can literally run to the store. So 45 minutes later in the car, I'm like, what store are we going to? This is not any, are we at least staying in the same state?
Right.
And, but that kind of put a perspective. And it was, you know, the first time I ever shot a bow was in my father-in-law or my wife's house that she grew up in, their backyard. That's where first time I ever shot a gun. My father-in-law took me. And, you know, my family, we always found it intriguing. We always enjoyed it.
Sure.
But it was one of those where, I mean, I played baseball every day of the summer up until I was graduated college. So a lot of those things where I was like, oh, you know, I would like to try that. I tried after college.
Sure.
So it's definitely, and farming is definitely one of them. I occasionally go hunting. So, you know, there was a piece of property that one of my good friends, his dad owns, and he's like, hey, if you want to hunt, you got to come out here and you got to, you know, take care of it. There's things we got to do. You're not just going to come out here and enjoy, you know, reap the benefits. Which is, it's definitely, you know, just from that short period of time, very humbling, very intriguing. The whole thing, you know, to be able to get up day in and day out and do something like that is, I tip my hat to you.
Well, I thank you.
It's definitely, it's not something that I could probably do it, you know, but it's not something that it wouldn't be at first on my list.
I get it. And, you know, it's funny. I'm from New York, and similar to the whole New Jersey thing, you know, people are like, what? You're from New York? How'd you get into horses? Now, granted, I was born in near New York City, near Manhattan. We were about 45 minutes away from Manhattan. But my parents moved us out to the very eastern end of the North Fork of Long Island, where there was nothing but potato farms.
Oh,
and
nice.
so there was two types of people, the farmers that work the land and the baymen and the fishermen that work the water, because we were on Long Island where we would clam and we would scallop and we would lobster and we would crab and do all those things. I graduated with 37 people.
That's interesting.
So when people are like, you're from New York, oh my God, how did you end up with horses? And
You're
I'm
in
like,
a whole different part of New York.
yeah, it's not Manhattan. Not that I don't love Manhattan. I always call her my city.
Yeah.
But a whole different, you know, and it's, well, you know, us Long Islanders really think that there's only one New York, which is Long Island. And it's not upstate. Other people are like, oh, so you had a lot of snow. No, Long Island, no people, no snow. You know, it's completely different.
Best of both worlds.
Yeah, exactly. It's the best part of New York, if I say so myself.
That's fair. I'm not a big fan of New York.
Yeah.
I've traveled to New York. We've, with my wife's family living, I think they're an hour and 15 minutes from the city. We've gone a couple times, you know, to the Empire State Building, all the tourist event or attractions. It's definitely fun to visit.
Yes. Manhattan, yes.
It would eat me alive. I couldn't live there.
Yep.
I walk too slow. I walk way too slow, and I don't do the whole bumping in and everything. That is
Yeah.
one of those where I probably get into a fight or something.
See, I find that exhilarating. I don't think I'd want to live there either.
Yeah.
But I would like to be able to go and spend a couple of days, a couple of times.
Sure.
Maybe every
A little
quarter.
vacation.
Yeah,
Sure.
because I just love it. We used to go as kids. We used to hop on the train. It's funny. You think about today, people would never do this, but just as a bunch of teenagers, 14 maybe and older, we'd hop on a train from the end of Long Island and go to Manhattan for the day. And it was the Christmas train. And we would walk around all day long, and then we'd have to get back on the train and go home. But there weren't parents that went. We all went because we just loved being in Manhattan. We loved the hustle and bustle, and especially at Christmas time. It's my most favorite time to go.
Yeah.
And I got to bring my kids up there one time when they were younger, when they were teenagers, and to just see it through somebody else's eyes was really cool because we were there over Christmas and it snowed. It was like the perfect experience for the kids.
Yeah.
Nothing like skating in Rockefeller Center while it's snowing.
That is one thing that
I mean-
I would love to do. I had a short career in ice hockey. I think it was maybe 1 year. So I do know how to ice skate. So that is one thing that I've always wanted to try to do. I think now might be a little challenging. I know last year we had an idea, but with having a 1.5-year-old, a lot of the ideas kind of get put to the side, which is okay. That's okay. So I think it's definitely one of those. It's on the bucket list.
So
for sure.
career, like as in on a sports team, or when you said hockey?
No, more of like a high school level, just career as in just.
Right.
I tried it for a year, and I was like, man, this is challenging. I thought it was like I knew generally how to ice skate, so I was like, okay. It's the being able to ice skate like you are not on ice skates, and just being able to fluently move forwards and backwards. Mm-hmm. That is where I kind of I was like, you know what, I'm gonna go play football.
Yeah, I wanted to figure skate when I was a kid. When we lived we called Up Island, and my parents would not get me figure skating lessons until I strapped on hockey skates. I'm really not sure what that idea was and why that was, but I had to prove myself by doing hockey before they would do figure skating. Yeah, very bizarre.
Interesting.
And then by the time it was time for figure skating lessons, we moved out to that little itty bitty town where there wasn't figure skating. But that's okay because all of the neighborhood kids would get together, and instead of playing street hockey, the ponds would freeze and the water would freeze, and we'd play ice hockey. So in a way,
You were
it
well
worked out
prepared.
because I was well prepared.
Yeah.
I still had my Bauer skates. I was probably the only girl that didn't have those cute little white skates, but that's okay and it was a lot of fun. It was one of those really fun childhood memories. And fun fact, when we bought our farm, one of the reasons why we bought it is because it had a pond on it. And every year we would get the kids when it would freeze, we'd be like, all right, we're going down to the pond. And it was much smaller than the
So
ponds that we
exciting.
had on Long Island. But
Yeah.
my kids hopefully fondly remember going down to the pond in the middle of the farm
Skating.
and skating. And, I'd bring down hot chocolate. And I'm pretty sure I look at it as more of an idyllic situation than a bunch of kids when it's really cold outside and they're freezing to death. But
I don't want to skate anymore. Get out there.
get out there and skate.
All right, so I'm going to take a little side turn and talk more business.
Okay.
So with having all these businesses, sounds like you're well versed in a lot of different, from horse business to running a brick and mortar. What challenges kind of come to light when I say business challenges? Is it something, you see common challenges throughout? Is each one unique? What are some of those hurdles that you've come across?
I think the biggest challenge has always been and will always be employees. Getting people to work with you. I hate to say that people work for me because I would like to think that I'm one of those people that I am alongside. It's a far cry for anybody to come work at my barn with me where I'm not out there mucking with them, or when I'm showing them how to do it, I'm not standing back and just doing this.
Yeah.
I am right there in the trenches. And I would say the biggest challenge that I've had, even with the shop in Berryville, with the way it's run, it's more like a co-op. It's not an actual co-op, but it's similar because all the artists have to work in the shop. That's part of being allowed to be in the shop.
Interesting.
So
Okay.
while they're not employees, they still have the responsibility of working in the store. And being the owner, when somebody else can't make it in or something goes awry, you are responsible. You're on the hook.
You're the last line of defense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that's the biggest challenge. And it's funny, it doesn't seem to matter if it is a brick and mortar, if it's a farm, or even if it's when I'm doing my real estate work. You know, if I'm relying on somebody to be there to help me, whether it's an assistant or a transaction coordinator or whatever, when they can't make it, it's the same problem across the board. So,
and that's very challenging because you can have a good conversation, you can feel like you're making a great connection, and then somewhere there's a disconnect.
Something goes sideways. Yeah.
So yeah, goes sideways.
And
that's a good way to put it.
And my clients, whether they're farm clients or my retail clients or my real estate clients, I want them all to have a dynamite experience. I want them all to be taken care of fully. Even I want them to have things that are taken care of for them that they didn't even know they needed to be taken care of.
That's the way to do it.
And it's really hard to find somebody who doesn't have skin in the game to have the same heart that I do, because it's in my heart, right? I don't do all of these businesses because I want to be a millionaire, because, well, it's not working if that was the case.
Not yet, at least.
Not yet, right. I do all these things because I like to do these things. And my heart is in it 150% of the time. And you can't really expect somebody who works with you to have the same drive and heart and want to do the same things that you do. And that to me is, that's the emotional challenge for me, is I find myself having to step back lots and reminding myself that, even my husband, he's not going to care for the horses the way I'm going to care for them. So when he has to go out in my stead and do something, I have to check myself because he's not me.
No, and there's nothing wrong with that. I think it's challenging. I'm very similar in a sense of I like to do things a certain way. I'm very similar in a sense of I want to, go the extra mile, right? My business is what I enjoy doing.
Yeah.
It's one of those where if I didn't enjoy doing it, I wouldn't be in the business.
Right.
One. And two, I'm not in it for the money. Trust me, that's a great bonus. It's definitely the end of the day, you need to make money to survive as a business owner. Well, just people in general. But at the end of the day, like, I enjoy creating. I enjoy being creative. I enjoy everything there is that I offer. If I didn't enjoy it, I wouldn't offer it. Right. I've had a lot of people kind of advise me and, hey, you should really kind of focus on one thing. Focus on this. Don't do just, or focus just towards real estate or just towards music videos or just towards weddings. And I'm like, yes and no. One, because I could be wrong in my thought process, but I enjoy doing all those things. Yeah. I see creative ways of doing all of those, some more than others, right? I can only finagle real estate so much. No, I'm joking. But it's one of those where I see a creative side in all those, and it kind of keeps me on my toes, right? I enjoy having three different things, different hats I could put on, while also, right, it's all under the same umbrella. It's not like I'm, doing one thing that's completely different than the other, right? And that's where I kind of push back. I'm like, sometimes you see people, they get into this rhythm where they do the same thing, and they get burned out. Yeah. And I'm like, why would I want to do that? Right. Why wouldn't I want to keep doing a couple different things within reason, right? Sure. Keeping it manageable, but also enjoying what I'm doing. Right?
Well, yeah, because isn't there a saying about if you do what you love every day, you don't work a day in your life?
That's exactly right.
And that's important.
That is exactly right. And to kind of go back on what you're saying with, kind of checking yourself, there's people that I've come across that I've worked with or tried to work with, I'm not going to drop names, but it was, somebody that we were deciding if we wanted to do shoot weddings together, or just I might not even been weddings. But I can tell like their drive was there, but I think it was more of I want to scale and make as much money as quick as possible, which is fine. I have no problem with that. It just doesn't align with my internal goals, right? Yeah, obviously I want my business to succeed, but I'm not going to do a bunch of crazy stuff where I'm not lining up with my core values, right? The business values.
Correct.
And that's part of the reason why it's an interesting topic when people say, oh, so it's only you? I'm like, yeah, it's only me for now. Right. I'm still looking and would like to kind of venture out and see if I can bring people on. But I've had people that have been right up to okay, let's start moving forward. And for whatever reason, we decided, you know what, let's not.
Well, and I think you have to do what's in your heart. And you have to, you really have nobody to answer to but yourself and God, if that's what you choose to believe.
Yeah.
But it is hard to remind yourself that not everybody's going to treat your clients, your customers, and your business the way you do. And that really is the hardest part, I think, of being an entrepreneur, right? I, like you, love to do lots of different things. I like to learn lots of different things. I like to stay busy, obviously, doing lots of different things. But it's a definite regular reminder that it's me, I am me, and those other people that are out there supporting me are not me. And that's probably the hardest emotional challenge of being a business owner, is knowing that, that thing about, ain't nobody gonna do it like you do it. And that's not exactly what I mean. I'm sure I can get people to do exactly the paperwork the way it needs to be done.
Sure.
But it's having that heart and that emotional connection with the client on the other side.
And I think there's definitely, I'm not saying, we're few and far between, there's nobody that lines up with this. I think everybody has their own thing that they're excited or that gets their drive going, right? It's finding somebody that aligns with the same kind of values you have, because I've come across many business owners that same thing. They love, I think for an example I can use is I was talking with somebody about somebody that cleans sneakers, and they use that as a business. It's a thing because people want clean sneakers. It's part of your your attire. Anyway, they probably love cleaning sneakers, but to get that same drive of what they're doing with that towards something else is very challenging. So you really got to find, and I guess this might be like a little pointer to anybody looking to start a business, find what you love to do and do it.
That's
right. And going back to what you said, if you do what you love, you haven't worked it.
If you do what you love every day, you don't work a day in your life.
Perfect. Yeah, I completely botched it, but that's okay.
We knew what you meant.
Yeah, it's there.
Didn't we? We all knew.
Yeah. So and that's exactly right. Right. So, kind of going off of that, I guess my next question would be, is back when you started the entrepreneurship, right, going down this road, the businesses you have, did you see yourself kind of going that direction? Or did you kind of come across something and you said, you know what, I want to know more, I want to learn more, let's kind of dive on into it?
Well, the horses, like we discussed, I knew. That was something
Sure.
I wanted to do from the time I was little. So that was an obvious thing. The artist, absolutely not. I mean, the big joke is that I can't draw a straight line without a ruler, and I still can't. And I don't really, so we have on the farm, we have these metal gates that block the entrance, because if the horses ever get out of the fence, I want to know that they can't get off of the farm.
Fair enough.
And we used to have just these boring old tube gates. They're just, they're 16 feet long, and they're
The
just
typical
around.
farm.
And I'm like, gosh, I am very detail driven. I am to a fault detail driven, and I wanted something pretty. So I just sat down with a piece of paper and a pencil, and it was my first ever art. I designed my gates.
Wonderful.
And my husband was like, "Where'd you copy that from?" I'm like, "That's not very nice."
My brain, yeah.
Exactly. And I took it to a welder, and I had the welder make them. And he asked me, "That's a cool design. Where'd you find it?" And my brain.
Yeah.
But that somehow awakened.
Stirred the creativity.
It stirred the creativity. And interestingly enough, what I've learned is that my work with animals is the same side of the brain, I think. So it was all there. It just never got picked out.
Sure.
So, because I can't even hardly draw a stick figure. Really, I can't. We do paint night things at the shop, and they're always like, "Oh, you should come." I'm like, "No, you don't understand. That's not my gig."
Yeah.
But what I do is completely different. And I never would have thought of myself as, forget being an artist in an art-driven store, but owning it, never really.
So you're on both sides of the scale.
And the real estate. So I did my first real estate deal when I was 18, 18, almost 19. Not necessarily legally. I mean, it wasn't really illegal either. My parents were selling their home, and it was a for sale by owner, and they put it on wherever it was they advertised it at, and then they took off to go on vacation for 6 weeks. And they were like,
"You're in charge now.
You're in charge if you get any calls." And back then, I mean, last week, it was, almost 40 years ago, we didn't have cell phones. And they were off sailing on their sailboat in the ocean, so they had sat phones. We had satellite phones. So somebody called, wanted to buy the house. I negotiated the deal, called my dad on the sat phone and was like, "Hey, this is what we got." And that was it, right?
The rest is history.
And well, interestingly enough, is that my husband and I have dabbled in buying and selling a couple of homes. I've helped friends do remodels and flips. We helped our son with a remodel and a flip, and now we have a rental. But I never really looked at it as a career in any way, shape, or form. That just wasn't my gig, but I was very busy with the horses, right, and being at home with the children. And then one day, and don't know how this is going to go out in this sort of venue, but my husband woke up and said, "I want a sugar mama. Time for you to go do what you do best, which is make
some money.
Make some money. Making connections was where he was going with it, and creating the relationships that you create with real estate." He's like, "You've got the eye, you've got the design eye, you can do this. You do this for all your friends. It's time, lady.
Yeah.
Let's go. I want a sugar mama."
Again,
yeah.
What we were saying, right? If you're good at something and you're doing it,
yep.
Why not put a business behind it?
So for Christmas, him and my youngest son bought me real estate classes, and I was, this was just pre-COVID, and I was like, my brain's old. I got to go back to school. This really, because
what in the world?
What in the world? Because it's a 60-hour. It's the equivalent of college 60 credit hours.
Oh wow, yeah.
It's a minute.
I've heard with coming in and working with different real estate agents, it is a challenge.
It is a challenge, and less than 50% of the people pass the test.
That's
yeah. And my old brain is shriveled because I've been working with horses, slinging poop.
Yeah.
For 40 years, so
it's different.
Now I have to do math.
That would be the other side of the brain.
That would be with the one that was dormant. I had to wake it up. Come on, wake up.
Come on, here we go.
So I would never have guessed, ever, even a decade ago, I would never have guessed that I would be out here selling real estate and loving it as much as I do.
It's definitely, I do not take this as me wanting to be a real estate agent. It's interesting. I grew up in the same house my entire life, so I never had to do the whole buy sell. Or sell buy, I guess is a better way to put it.
Same thing.
Either way. Back right before COVID, my wife and I were like, all right, we're done renting. We want to buy. And that was my first kind of interaction with a real estate agent. And we had a phenomenal agent. I mean, she was perfect. I don't know how, shout out to my wife, because she's the one that figured it out or reached out to her. I don't know if it was luck of the draw with Zillow or whatever avenue we went, but she was amazing. And we had a very smooth purchase, made out like a bandit. I won't throw numbers, but it was one of those where the previous owner agreed before they got the appraisal in, and we came in with a huge amount of equity the day of.
Wow.
So it was one of those.
Congratulations.
It was one of those where I was like, oh my goodness. Anyway, fast forward, we were there for a couple of years. We had a kid or have a kid. Now we're like, okay, let's, take advantage of the seller's market, this and that. And with selling, again, we're 2 for 2 with real estate agents. We had I think we had a very good real estate agent that was focused in buying, right? First time home buyers. And just so happened that we had another agent. He did an amazing job with selling. I mean, he knew this is how it's going. This is what we need to do. All right, we got offers in. This is what you need to do. He managed the whole thing. He had a couple phone calls from me going, "Oh, I'm panicked," and he was like, "Look, no, you're good.
Take a breath.
No problems." So 2 different experiences were great. But going back, there's a lot of knowledge that I didn't realize. And that's probably where that long question or, course. And I hear the test is a very challenging test.
It's several hours. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's, I'm not one for taking tests. I'm not.
Well,
a good
and then
test
we have
taker.
continuing education that we have to take as
Okay,
well
yeah.
every year. So I'm licensed in Virginia and West Virginia. So we have CEs that we have to take continually for both states. And I think people have a connotation that, we make a ton of money and it's really easy. That's really not the case. It's easy if you enjoy it.
Well, you have to put the work into it.
You have to put the work into it. And with the market that we have today, and the market really even during COVID, so I don't think I could have jumped in at any worse of a time, really, because we went from COVID where people were buying homes without looking at them and things were flying off the shelves. I mean, you could not keep a house for more than 24 hours on the market, and you were competing with 30, 40, 50 other people. I don't even know where all the money came from, but it was insane. And now we're in a market where while people are taking their time, like a week before they buy a house, there's still low inventory, but now we have high interest rates and everybody is comparing it to COVID interest rates, which I tell people, you know what? You don't even want to acknowledge that COVID even existed. It was a time period that was just a horrible time period. So throw all of it out. Don't just keep the interest rates and say, oh, but no, that's not how any of that works. The whole time period, that whole 2-year period should just go right out the window. And we should be comparing prior to 2020 to today when it comes to interest rates. And yes, we are higher, but it's not that huge 6% higher that people are losing their minds about now.
And that's kind of, I'll be honest, we had that conversation when we decided to sell is, okay, eventually we're going to have to buy.
Yes.
So, interest rates. And we lucked out and refinanced in the middle of COVID and got a great rate.
As did I.
And it was a smart move. And I think strategically all the moves we've made have been smart. A little biased opinion, to be honest. But it's one of those where, we had to, I remember the night we kind of were like, okay, look, we are not going to get back to the COVID rate. Like we're not going to get this rate again.
We will never see twos again.
It will never go back to what it was. So we have to get that number out of our head.
Yes.
And then the other thing is that, even if you have a higher rate now, and again, I'm stepping way out of my comfort zone of talking about this, is you can always refinance later.
See, you were
once
the king.
Once it goes back down. So why not take advantage, right? So don't look at, the interest rates is why I'm not buying my house. Look for the house you're looking for. And then when you find a good agent, they can work with you. I know everyone keeps talking about there's a bunch of different programs. You can get a whole bunch of different help from, different knowledge-based and, expertise that are way above my level of knowledge. So it's one of those where you want to find a good agent. You want to find a good source of knowledge, somebody that knows what they're talking about, and then go that route. But at the end of the day, find the house you're looking for.
Yes.
And worry about all of this stuff after.
Well, we say, or I say at least, date the rate, marry the home.
There you go. You couldn't have said it any better.
You fall in love with the home. Well, go ahead and marry it because, this rate that we have here, some companies are offering free refinancing within a certain period of time if the rate goes down.
Yeah.
And when rates go down, prices are going to go up. And if you have a good lender that you work with, they can show you the models by using past history and future predictions. And it doesn't end up being to your benefit to wait until the rate drops to whatever rate you're comfortable with.
Because then the prices
when the prices go up more than it would have been what you would have paid if you would have bought prior and just paid a little bit more for your monthly payment. And it's a hard pill to swallow because it's becoming unaffordable for first-time home buyers. But it's still something that I encourage all of my clients to look at. And the other thing that I think real estate agents, really good real estate agents, it's not just themselves that are smart and educated. We surround ourselves with
Good resources.
Vendors that can help us and therefore help our clients, and it really does make us the hero. When you've got all those people out there that can help your client, whether it's, a good lender, or you need to have the house cleaned before you move out, or you need to have it painted before you sell it, or you move in and you need somebody for HVAC or plumbing or whatever.
Things pop up.
What makes the absolute and most incredible agent is having all of those connections. And makes me the hero. I am Superwoman because of it.
A good network. That's all. It goes a long way.
It sure does. It sure does.
We ran into a minor issue, but again, a good network, a good source of knowledge, and I think within a couple of days, it wasn't even an issue anymore. So,
you forgot all about it.
Yeah. So, all right, my last and final question, because we have been chatting for a while, which is, I feel that we can probably talk for a very, very long time, but I know it's getting close to dinner time, and
I can hear my stomach rumbling.
Yeah, fair enough. So my last question, and kind of what I've started to end a lot of these episodes on, is with your years of experience in being an entrepreneur, with starting businesses, what is one piece of advice that you would want to pass on to somebody that's at the beginning, right? Somebody that is, you know what, I'm going to start a business tomorrow. What's your advice?
Oof. I would say, and we touched on this, the most important thing is to find something that you love to do. But then see if you can't create a business model around it. I mean, who would have thought that cleaning sneakers would be a business, right? But if there's something that you really enjoy doing, and you can sit down and put pen to paper and figure out if it is something that is sustainable, and it is something that can pay your bills and that of your families or whatever your future looks like, I mean, go for it. But it's got to be something that you like to do, because if you don't have the passion, where's the drive going to come from?
Yeah.
If you don't have the willingness and the drive and the passion to get up in the morning and go, yes, today's going to be the day.
Yeah.
I'm going to do, and whatever, finish the sentence. If you're just lukewarm about whatever it is you're doing, are you really going to roll out of bed and have that drive?
Yeah. No, that is some very good advice. I think that is something a lot of people don't realize, but at the same time, I think about it, if your end goal is just to make as much money as possible, starting a business might not be your best option.
No, probably not.
There's some businesses that it might take off. I think it's more, like you said, passion in what you're doing, right? Enjoying what you're doing, and then the money comes after. But if you go into it first with, I need to do this to make a bunch of money, you're going to get burned out. You're going to get frustrated, right? Because things happen. It's a business. Life is life.
Life gets in the way.
Yeah. So it's definitely one of those where, that passion, but I think that's some rock solid advice.
Well, thank you. And stick-to-itiveness. Is that a word?
You just made it a word.
All right, there you go. Yeah. Even when I'm great about the cliche phrases, right? When the going gets tough, the tough get going. When it's tough, just keep going.
Yeah.
You gotta, you may have to go around, you may have to go through, but you go.
At least keep taking a step forward. Even if it's a baby step, still take a step forward.
That's true.
So I appreciate your time.
Well, thank you for having me.
I'm super excited that you came in and talked. There's a whole nother topic that we didn't even cover, so we're going to have to do like a part two.
Part two.
Which is actually how we got connected.
That's right.
But we'll have to leave that for a later date.
Okay.
But I will go ahead. I'm going to link all of your information, as far as where to contact if somebody's looking to buy or sell a house.
Or rent.
Or rent, whatever is needed. And then also, your other businesses, we can share, spread the love, share everything as much as we can and make a good connection. All right.
Well, this has been fantastic.
Yeah, it's been really fun.
Really good. Yeah, I appreciate it.
It was a good conversation.
Very good.
One of my favorites by far.
Why? Thank you.
So, All right, everybody. Thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you next time. Thank you.